Welcome, Finger Lakes basketball fans, to a special Tuesday night edition of the Upstate Hoops podcast on FingerLakes1.tv. It's January 21st, 2014, and this is episode number 9 of the season, and we're coming at you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. I'm Jim Sinecropi, and sitting in for my co-host Matt Verkey this week is the mouth of the South, Dandy Dave Barnick. Welcome to the studio, Dave.
Thank you very much, Jim. Good to be here.
And you're going to be calling the Lions at Clyde game tomorrow night on Finger Lakes One Sports.
Be frigid outside, it'll be hot inside.
I hear it's a sellout.
That would be a surprise if it weren't.
Yeah.
Two good teams.
So looking forward for that. And also another member of the Finger Lakes One Sports broadcasting team, former Waterloo Indians varsity basketball head coach, Kevin Korzeniewski. Welcome back to the studio, Kev.
Hey, Jim, how you doing tonight?
And we'll be talking about Newark's big win in Geneva on Friday night. Kevin was in the gym for that one. He also just arrived after watching Geneva squeak one out against Mynderse. And we'll have a preview of Wednesday night's huge rivalry game as Lions visits Clyde Savannah. And as I mentioned, it's a game you can watch live right here on FingerLakes1.tv at 7:30 p.m. The Upstate Hoops podcast is brought to you by Generations Bank. Generations of service for over 140 years. Visit them online at mygenbank.com. And also by Red's Place, serving great lunches daily in downtown Seneca Falls. Come down and watch all the big games on one of their 10 flat-screen TVs. And Seneca Meadows Landfill, responsible waste management for the next generation. See how they do it by watching their videos at senecameadows.com. Well, fellas, let's get to it. This has probably been the biggest week in the Finger Lakes East of the year, with Geneva hosting Newark on Friday night, and Newark coming out with a win, 53-46. Kevin, you were sitting like 2 rows behind the Geneva bench?
Yeah, we were, I don't know, high school game. It's courtside. We were right behind the Geneva bench. We walked in at tip-off, and I brought my son to the game. He likes to go watch the games. I was there tonight with the Mynderse Geneva game, and I wanted him to sit behind the bench to kind of get an feel for the atmosphere, because the atmosphere was the best I've seen in a year or two, really, in the league. So he could absorb that, and
sure.
He did. He was scared. He turned. He's 9, and he plays travel. He's 4th grader, and he turns and he says, "Dad, this is scary." And I said, "This is great. This is what you want. You don't want, 200 people there sitting on their hands." I said, "You want everybody up and screaming and yelling, and the student bodies involved." And so
white out for the Geneva students.
Yeah, Geneva's kids were involved, and Newark's kids were just as involved as Geneva's. And the Geneva kids had the white T-shirts on, and it was a great atmosphere.
Yeah, I listened to the game on WGVA. Ted Baker had the call. I think he does a great job, and you could tell how exciting it was, how loud it was, and then Geneva jumps out to the quick lead, 13 points or so, and then Phil Tack with a 2-hand jam for Newark out of nowhere kind of turns things around, and you said that was the best dunk you've seen this year.
Yeah, Phil Tack just came out of nowhere. It's a fast break, and he's going up, and he's contested, and he just kind of took off 2 feet and put it down. And I think that Newark kind of came out a little tentative and not guns ablaze, a little scared almost, You'd like to see them come out with a little bit more confidence than they did. I think I saw in the Finger Lakes Times, Brian Miller said it was a little bit of fool's gold, them being up that right. much early. And kind of watching the game, you knew Geneva wasn't going to blow them out, and that Newark would eventually have to pick it up to be in the game, and they did. And I think that dunk helped spark that for Newark.
And Dave, you saw both these teams the first time they played, and I think you guys both called that game.
Yes, we did.
It was Geneva at Newark, and Geneva ends up with the win in that game. What's your take on both these teams? They're tied atop the Finger Lakes East right now.
Well, I was thinking as Kevin was talking more about the atmosphere and how nice that is, and it's lacking in a lot of situations. At least I think probably up to this point, the best game the Finger Lakes one may have had was that Newark-Geneva game the first time. And the crowd's going back and forth, the team's going back and forth, and, of course, it was the Geneva point guard and the foul shooting, which solidified things down the stretch. I don't know who would win the rubber match, but that's quite a nice rivalry, which is resumed.
Yeah, and
in
they
the
could have a
Federal
rubber
League.
match because they're both A1 in sectionals, and I think two of the stronger teams in A1. So they could square off in the finals against each other, and you want to talk about creating a nice little rivalry and good atmosphere. That would probably be in the Blue Cross Arena. But Dalgos did it tonight again. Minders on the foul line made two big ones down the stretch. He was the one that made, I think, 9 of 10. In our
what was
game
the
when we
final
were
in
there.
that one?
That was 51-47. Minders putting quite a scare into Geneva tonight, and
Yeah, especially since the first matchup in Geneva was a 40-point Geneva win.
yeah, I think, and again, I'm talking about the atmosphere in Geneva, Newark. Tonight, the gym was pretty full at Minders, but a lot of people sitting on their hands.
Yeah.
Never really got quite into, in the fourth quarter, the atmosphere picked up.
Would you say, Kevin, that maybe Geneva's confidence has been shaken a little bit by the loss, or has Minders actually been showing some signs and improving?
I'd like to say that Minders has shown signs, but I think it was more Geneva's lack of effort. They started off the game. Minders was funny. They came out in man-to-man, and Brian Johnson didn't play for Minders tonight. He's sick. So they had to start a smaller lineup, and they had Jason Anderson inside guard and Ray Sims.
Jeez.
Giving
up 6
Jeez,
inches, 7?
So I'm thinking to myself, how long are they going to stay in this man? Ray Sims, 2 lobs, 4 points right off the bat. Minders then goes to a 2-3 zone for the remainder of the game. They actually pressed up to 44-42 with about 2.5 minutes to go. They pressed for the first time and gave up a layup. But outside of that one time, that trip of pressure, they sat in a 2-3 zone the whole time. And Brian Miller said it on your show, Jim, this show.
Right.
I think one of your first podcasts of the year, he said, play us in the zone because we don't know what to do. And this is when he was scrimmaging teams. I don't know, I remember him saying that. And some teams have and some teams haven't. The zone helped, but it was just more. Geneva looked a little beaten down still from Friday night, especially their guards. But they had no energy whatsoever. And it was more the lack of effort from Geneva than it was anything special Minders did, to be honest with you.
Well, they pull out the win at the end of the day. And, Dave, you mentioned in the first time around it was a point guard for Geneva that secured it well on the game Friday night. It was Tyler Collins, really, from what I could tell, Kevin, that won the game.
Tyler Collins, your co-host on the show, Matt Verkey, told me he reminds me of Tyler Ennis, and I agree. Yeah. He's very smooth, and what they say about Ennis is, last year Michael Carter Williams was a risk-reward player. There was a lot of reward, but there was also a lot of risk. Tyler Ennis is not a risk-reward player. He is a reward player. He just does good things, and Tyler Collins is the same to me. The other night, I wanted him to have the ball every possession with 8 seconds to go, kind of like Tyler Ennis did against Pitt this weekend, right? So, I give all the credit to Tyler Collins in that game. He was the difference in the fourth quarter, just as Dalgos was the difference in Newark on the game that we called. So, great job by Tyler Collins. Shot the ball well. He took care of the ball. He distributed the ball. And I love Newark. They bring 5 guys to the court, and they can rotate 7 or 8. I think they're the deepest team in the league as well. That really can play at all times.
Historically, going back forever, press,
yep. And that's
run
what
whenever
they're
you
doing,
can,
yeah.
And bring a lot of guys off the bench. But I had one question for you, Kevin. The 9-year-old, your 9-year-old,
yeah.
Who is his coach?
He's got some coaches right now as coaches.
I didn't know if it was you or not.
No, the great Mike Alessio is his coach right now. I don't know if you remember. Mike Alessio, he went to Seneca Falls, ended up playing RIT, played against Van Gundy.
I think his dad was the Romulus principal.
He was Frank Knight's school in Seneca Falls principal. I know that.
Yeah, they probably at some point he may have been.
He was my principal when I was in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, actually.
Well, not everybody succeeds, of course, despite their best efforts.
Well, a lot of other action in the Finger Lakes East on Friday night. It was Pell Mac beating Penn Yan 71-69 in double overtime. Trevor Wager at 17. And for Penn Yan, it was Ben Covert with 21. Penn Yan, a bit of a slide. This was kind of a game they needed. They dropped to 5-7, and they're actually, I think aren't they in with Newark and Geneva?
Penn Yan's B.
B. Okay. And then, hey, here's one for you on Friday night. Waterloo 54, Mid-Lakes 52. The Indians get the first win. David James Darling had 15. Ben Deming had 12. Nick Stenberg had 10. Jonathan Jones hit the game winner with 2 seconds left in regulation. So congratulations to Jeff Panic's Indians, and Did you see Jonathan Jones the next day at school?
I
or
saw
was it
Jonathan
Friday?
Jones today in school, and I walked by him in the halls. I just extended a high five to him. I said, congratulations. All that hard work pays off because Jonathan Jones is one of the hardest working kids on that team and in that group. And a big shout out to Jonathan. I didn't get a chance to ask him how the shot went down. I haven't gotten that information yet, but I'm really happy for him.
And Waterloo back in action tonight against Wayne. And Dave, I believe
the final score was 57-38 in favor of Wayne, and that's why off the air asked Kevin what he remembers his career high as being, and because the thing that strikes me is how many of these teams, Waterloo included, they just can't score. They don't score points. I mean, 38 points. It's not a slowdown affair.
Yeah,
they have shot clocks, and yet I don't know what you'd attribute that to, but a lot of games go that way.
The Geneva Newark game the other night was great atmosphere. It was kind of like the same atmosphere. It was a better atmosphere than the Newark game, but the same style of play. It was only 53-46. For two contenders, and I think heavyweights, very good teams for the league. There's not enough kids to step up. Watching that Geneva Mynderse game tonight, there's a couple players on each team that can kind of fill it up and have the confidence to do so, but you can really see it in the other kids, the role players that start. They're almost scared to shoot the ball, or they just don't have confidence, and I'm not sure what that is. So there's a couple good players on each team that have are playing at a great level. It's the other kids that need to kind of bring their level up.
You think part of that's the way that the team's coach, where the coach says, we're going to get this guy his shot here, we're going to get this guy his shot there, and
with those two teams, Geneva tonight, Dalgos was firing, and Johnsons and Sims, they're going to put it up for Geneva, and Walworth came off the bench and he hit a 3 or 2, maybe 2 threes. But Mynderse, all those kids have the green light. Ryan Major came in and he shot a 3. Liam Caraher, Cole Fletcher tonight, they laid off him. Geneva did, and I thought that was part of the problem. They sagged off Cole Fletcher, and Cole Fletcher ended up scoring probably 14, 15 points, is probably career high. But even when he shot it, you could tell he didn't want to shoot it. He banked one in, but he did hit 2 other threes. And I think that laying off Mynderse for Geneva, and I'd love to ask Coach Miller that question, maybe made that team a little lackadaisical tonight, where usually Geneva's up in your face and pressuring and trapping, and they really just sagged tonight. And I think at some point Geneva probably should have said, okay, forget that game plan. Let's go and attack and trap let's do what we're good at, not worry about Mynderse so much, because I think that energy level sank because of that philosophy on defense tonight for Geneva. But only Coach Miller would be able to answer that one.
So Mynderse actually may come out of tonight's loss feeling not so bad.
Yeah, hopefully
in terms of the long road.
Yeah, Mynderse really needs that marquee win. That they haven't had that win over these good teams. They've been close against Lions, close against Clyde, and now close against Geneva. All 3 of those teams are clearly better than the teams that they're going to play in sectionals, and that's what Mynderse right now, their focus should be, is let's make a little run, and they can take tonight and say, hey, we just played with a great A team. We got to take this to the rest down the stretch and into they still have Lions. They could go to Lions and win. There's no doubt in my mind they could beat Lions and Lions.
Sure, I think they almost kind of have to for their team psyche.
Yes. Yeah, they got to win a close game, a big game.
So one more game in the East was that Mynderse Wayne game on it was last Thursday night. Luke Ruddy had 17 and Mike Hollenbeck had 20 and 8 for Wayne. 66-60, the Eagles win that one. A couple other games tonight, Pelmac at Newark and Midlakes at Penn Yan. We don't have the scores for those games just yet. But let's move ahead quickly to the Finger Lakes West. Big game on Thursday night. Marcus Whitman moves to 9-2 with an overtime win over Naples, 66-65. Luke Shively's 22 points, 5 assists, 5 steals, 5 rebounds. It's a pretty solid game. Devontae Evans, 10 points and 8 rebounds. And for Naples, it was Andrew Fleischman with 17 and Tyler Holton with 18. So Marcus Whitman 9-2, looking pretty good. Moving ahead to Dundee at Honeoye, 77-33. The Scots win. Cole Hartman had 18 points and 9 rebounds. Justin Brace had 13 points and 15 rebounds. HAC defeated South Seneca 61-51. Galen Everett had 32 points. It's a big night, including 3 3-pointers. for HAC, and Devin Rogers had 14. Eric Dresser had 12. Dave, you had a chance to look at South Seneca? That's right from your neck of the
I'm
woods.
glad you asked. I did go to a game last week, and I have to say, this because the gym is a beautiful new gymnasium.
Right.
The lighting is horrible.
Really, in the new
You
gym.
need to bring a flashlight. In fact, I talked to the varsity official, while the JV game was still going on, saying, you can get away with as many bad calls as you want tonight because nobody can see anything. It's really an embarrassment, and I've been meaning to contact the school superintendent and say, because I fought for that project that was passed, and we got the new gym, and it's a beautiful gymnasium. They have roughly half as many lights in the same area as Waterloo does in their gym. And,
Waterloo's well lit.
And but South Seneca, with a lot of the kids, they're improving, but they don't have that basketball court sense that comes from playing and good coaching. I think with Waterloo's win, and I see Honeyway has got a win somewhere.
Yep.
Romulus now, the only team without a win.
Yeah, I feel
I think Williamson picked up a win this week as well, their first win.
And we know how bad Romulus is because South Seneca, who's not very good, being frank, beat them by 44 points.
Yeah, that was in the rivalry game of all rivalry games, perhaps,
So
this year it is.
Yeah, without a doubt. And they play again this week. So,
but your comment was a good one earlier in the year when you said you'd like to see the Romulus boys play the Romulus girls.
Well, I want to make sure that we get some more coverage of the Romulus girls team, going forward, and the South Seneca girls. We've been focusing a lot on the Waterloo girls here at FingerLakes1.com, and those are three really good girls basketball teams in Seneca County.
Yeah, Romulus and Damon Nicholson does a great job with that group, and they've been playing great the last 5-6 years.
The South Seneca coach, by the way, Heather Mott, the former Heather Coonrot, was an outstanding both pitcher and softball and basketball player for Jack Guinan way back in, I guess, the 90s probably.
Yeah, she'd probably bring some of the things she learned under
They're
his
a young
tutelage.
team, not very big, but again, very young. So you'll be hearing
I've
from
seen
them
South
for the
Seneca
next
play
couple
this
of
year
years.
against Mynderse, and I was impressed. Nice freshman center. She's a pretty big kid.
Only a freshman.
Yeah, she's young.
One more game from the West. Red Jacket 60, Romulus 34. Corey Fogarty, 18 points and 5 rebounds. Ryan Sadler, 12 points and 7 rebounds. And now moving ahead to the Wayne County League. Quickly, it was Gananda 75, Marion 39. Eric Mucci with 13, had a little dyslexia there. 13 points for Mucci. Gananda's 8-4. North Rose Wolcott with a pretty big win over Red Creek, 57-47. They moved to 7-3. Chris Dean, 17 points, 10 in the fourth quarter, 17 rebounds. Tyler Norris, 19 points, 14 in the fourth quarter. So they came charging back in the final stanza. And Jake Slobe, 18 points for Red Creek, who's now 4-6. Mentioned another winless team that did get their first win. Williamson beat Sodas. Actually, kind of shocked Sodas, 56-52. Sodas is a decent team, now 4-8. Ignacio Ruiz, 21 points, and Matt Spur had 19 to lead Williamson to their first win of the year. And then Friday night, Clyde Savannah tested against East Rochester. They come out with a 3-point win, something Lions couldn't do when they visited East Rochester. So huge win for Clyde. They remain undefeated at 12-0. Cam DeSanto, 21 points. Joe Faniel, 15. Jermaine Bogan, 14. And ER, Trey Miller, and Justin Reho with 14 apiece. We're going to talk about the Clyde Lions game a little bit later in the show, running a little bit behind here. So I'm going to speed through to the, just last night, Martin Luther King Day special game. North Rose Wolcott, 61. Kendall, 47. And in this game, Chris Dean has 23 points and 11 rebounds, moving the Wildcats to 8-3. So that gets us caught up on everything around the leagues this week. And we're going to take a 60-second break and hear from our sponsors and be back with our players of the week and our power rankings.
You got one pick?
we hold on to the things that really matter. Welcome to Generations Bank.
Hi, I'm Jody Torrio. If you're like me, you've got stuff lying around the house that you want to recycle, but you're just not sure how, like broken toasters, vacuum cleaners, or microwaves. At Seneca Meadows, we have a drop-off for those. Bring in anything with a cord, and we'll make sure it's recycled properly through our partnership with 2TRG. It's that easy.
And welcome back to the Upstate Hoops podcast on FingerLakes1.tv. Well, we got 3 of us in the studio. That means 3 players of the week. And, of course, the players of the week win a beautiful, coveted FingerLakes1.com t-shirt. And all you got to do to claim your t-shirt if you do become our player of the week is email FingerLakes1.com or email the podcast at upstatehoops@FingerLakes1.com with your t-shirt size and your mailing address. And guess what? A few days you'll get a t-shirt in the mail.
Sometimes it's a few days.
Yeah, sometimes it's a few weeks.
We still got to get the very nice, the mother of the Geneva player who gave us all those accolades as we...
Send her a t-shirt?
Yeah.
Well, whoever you are.
She was complimenting us before that Waterloo game.
Oh, about the coverage?
Yeah, very much.
That's always nice to hear that when we're out there. It's a lot of hard work, and it's good to know that people are enjoying it. So, my player of the week, guys, is Tyler Collins. In the game of the year, probably one of the unheralded players in that Newark starting lineup, or more unheralded players. You know, basically puts the team on his back in the fourth quarter, ends up with 17 points. And so he's my player of the week, Tyler Collins, Newark.
Well, since Jim went first, and I probably would have went with Collins as my number 1 pick as well. So a couple other kids I'm looking at out there. Mike Hollenbeck had a big week for Wayne. We're going to see him in action, I think, next weekend, Jim. And Chris Dean from North Rose had a great week as well. But I'm going to go with Jonathan Jones from Waterloo. And the reason being is, as a coach, you never want to look back and say we never won a game. We didn't have one win. And for Jonathan Jones to make that shot and get that team
over the
could
hump.
be its only win
Yeah.
of the season. And you know, that'll be something he'll talk about for the rest of his life. And now he's got a shirt to go along with the story.
If he emails us.
I can bring it to him.
No, we got rules here.
Okay. All right.
All right, Dave.
Well, I was leaning toward Cam DeSanto, and he deserves all the accolades that I'm sure he'll receive. But when you have 2 double-doubles in 2 victories, as Chris Dean did in a week, I think that's a pretty safe choice as I look over these stats here. I don't know the young man. I imagine he's a workhorse.
He's a big guy. He's a big guy.
Yeah, but 17 rebounds in the victory over Red Creek, and 23-11 against the home of Roosevelt Bowie and Company, the Kendall team. But I see with Clyde defeating East Rochester, Jim Boeheim, I've seen him say this on the Yes Network interview and in the book by Scott Patiniak, I think was the writer.
Color and Orange, my favorite book.
His toughest loss ever was in the sectional finals.
Oh, that's
to
right.
East Rochester.
Yep.
So Christine.
And that was a Lions team that was favored, and I think that was their only loss.
That's the one he said he loses sleep over at night still.
Yeah, who cares about 87?
I think he's
turned me against Syracuse for my entire life.
He's sleeping pretty well these days. I've never seen him more relaxed. We'll talk more about that later, I'm sure.
So the Wayne Finger Lakes power rankings, we're expanding it to 10. And since you guys aren't regulars here, usually Verk and I give it, I'm going to give you my top 10, and you guys can comment on it, and maybe I'll take that under advisement for next week. But so usually 5, expanded it to 10 because there's a lot of good teams.
I was just going to ask, are there 10 good teams in the Wayne Finger Lakes?
I think there is, and that's why we've expanded it.
I'm interested to hear it.
And I'm going to start out in number 10 with Marcus Whitman at 9-2. Sure, they were a team in the East that went to the West. I think they'd have a winning record if they stayed in the East.
They would. I think they'd be 500. I got in this conversation with Matt the other night, and I coached against those kids and the coach. And a few years ago, they were modified, and they were a good group. They had talent, and you could tell that they were going to progress. It wasn't. Sometimes you look at a modified team and say, "Oh, they're doing good," but they might not grow and things like that. But I agree with you, Jim. I think Marcus Whitman would say, I know people say, "Well, they're in the West now," but they either way, East or West, good. They're going to have a good season.
So I got them 10. Minders, I got at 9, and you might look at their overall record and say, "Geez, do they really belong in the top 10?" But they played Newark tough. They played Geneva tough tonight. So there can't be that big of a discrepancy. And, I think they are improving and working towards sectionals. Good chance to make a run in sectionals despite how beat up they get in the East. And even Wayne, it was a 6-point loss. Seems like they're right there. They just got to find
I'm not arguing with
formula.
you there, Jim. If you walk into Mynderse gyms, you'll see a few years up there where they've won sectionals at 500 or under 500, and the banner's still on the wall. So,
right.
Coach Ciotti.
Not all banners are still on the wall, though, right?
Well, not every banner's not on the wall, but not all numbers. So, that should be their focus right now with Coach Ciotti. Say, hey, look up. We still got a shot at this, salvaging the season and making a run towards sectionals.
And, of course, Dave, you're talking about the retired numbers of Mark Scalzo and Matt Verke that came down over the summer for painting or renovating, which the gym does look great. But they got to get those numbers up, right?
Let's put them back up there. And I think it annoys me that South Seneca, for example, does not have a Hall of Fame. And you want people who excelled to be able to really take pride while they're still around and able to do so.
Yep.
And I think those two numbers, and hopefully add a couple more to it.
Sure. I mean, well, how about a guy like Brandon Pasalacqua?
No, I don't. I one of my favorite kids ever to root for, and what a career at Mynderse. But you got to be elite in the sense of basketball. Verk, obviously the greatest player ever to come through school. His number should be on the wall. If it's retired, put it on the wall. Have an art class paint it up there. Do something.
Yeah.
And
just one number.
Right. And Scalzo, he had a great career and he
state
came
champion.
a long way. State champ on his way to college to play. Before he lost his life, and a great remembrance of him. But
right, I'm almost as upset about that number not being up as being he was in my age demographic. I was a few years older. He was your teammate.
Yeah. And
I just think that you got to get that number back up there.
If you're going to retire a number,
yeah,
let everybody know it's retired. Put it on the wall.
Yep. All right. I got ER at 8. Now ER is in Mynder's class, so a potential good matchup there down the road. But they beat Lions. They're fighting for second place in Wayne County. So I got them at 8, and then I got Lions at 7. Even though that they ER beat Lions.
Yeah.
But Lions also beat ER early in the season.
They split. Yep.
Yeah, and we're going to see Lions and Clyde tomorrow. Dave and Matt Verke on the call, and I'm excited for that game because this will be the third time we've gone into that gym to see Lions play Clyde. And I think every year we've been thinking, geez, Clyde's probably going to win this game. And the first 2 years, Lions won, and so I'm not so sure tomorrow's going to be any different. We're going to see Damon Hunter. We're going to see Cam DeSanto and Jermaine Bogan, DJ Long, and for a lot of these kids, it's their last Lions-Clyde game, and it's a sellout. They sell tickets. It's sold out. You can't get in. Well, where do you hear about that in high school anymore?
It's a game of emotion, and that's those games that you would pay to go see. Well, most of us would.
Maybe you can get some tickets on StubHub.
There you
go. So I got Lions at 7, Dundee at 6, Bloomfield at 5, the two top teams in the West. And then it's all, well, it's not all Finger Lakes East, but I got Wayne at 4, Clyde at 3, Geneva at 2, Newark at 1. And, last week it was Geneva, Clyde, Newark, 1, 2, 3. And so I've really swapped things around, even though Geneva, Newark leapfrogs them both with that impressive win. And then Geneva, I still think if Geneva played Clyde, that Geneva wins as impressive as Clyde's been
I
this
agree
year.
with you. I think if Newark and Geneva play Clyde, they're both better. Clyde's a great team, and Clyde's going to make a run at it and see. But the difference in the teams is too much. And I agree with you on Newark being the one. I think Newark brings 7, 8 better players than Geneva has. Geneva has the 2 most dynamic kids in Johnson and Sims. I think Sims is clearly the best player in the league.
You thought he was the best player in the court Friday night.
Yeah, he was. He was the best player on the court Friday night, and I think he's the best player in the league. And there's some pretty good players in the league, but I give the nod to him. But Newark brings more at you. You know, they're well-rounded, and what I loved about Newark the other night is they pressed Newark, or Geneva, and they forced Geneva into some sloppy turnovers, and I give Newark a lot of credit for pressing the entire
And they tried to
game.
press them the first time that they played, but their press is different. They're playing, they're fierce now.
Well, it takes
Newark's
a while.
Fierce now.
You know, another thing I think Coach Miller said on your show is, well, the first 2 times those 2 played, they only had 2 games in each. You know, so they're 2 total different teams. They're both well coached, so they're going to get better as the season goes on. And Newark's defense is clearly much better than it was at the beginning of the year.
Well, I saw Bloomfield play South Seneca. They annihilated South. The game was over in the first quarter, and they have size, and they're well coached. They move the ball really, really well. But having said all that, and not even having seen Lions, from what I know of Lions, being well coached, being athletic, and I think their quickness, I would defer to the expertise of either or both of your picks here or ratings, but I would probably put Lions ahead of the West teams.
And that's always the
interesting,
question:
yeah.
is, you know, is the best team in the Wayne County, are they better than the best team in the West? And is the best team in the East, or is the 3rd or 4th place team in the East better than the 1st place team in the West? And you know, sometimes we don't get to see these things played out. This year we are getting a chance with Mynderse playing Lions and Clyde. That's pretty cool. But
So there's your plug for next year, maybe to do an East Rochester game in Lions or Clyde, because I'd like to see what East Rochester has.
yeah, we're gonna try. I mean, I've already committed to do a Red Creek game because we're gonna see Jake Slobe in his senior year.
He's a junior. I
Yep.
didn't know that.
If you go to East Rochester, I think the family Italian restaurant is named Perlo's up there or something like that.
Well, we'll make the reservations and we'll set the date, and then we'll bring the whole team out for a little little dinner,
Little pasta.
pre or post game. All right, guys. Quick look at the week ahead. Wednesday, tomorrow night, Honeoye at Romulus, Marcus Whitman at Bloomfield, Red Jacket at Naples, South Seneca at Dundee. That Lions at Clyde game live on FingerLakes1.com at 7:30 p.m. North Rose Wolcott at Gananda. That's a pretty big matchup in Wayne County. Sodas at Marion, Williamson at Red Creek. Friday night, Geneva at Wayne. Geneva has trouble with Mynderse tonight. They got Wayne on Friday. Mynderse at Pelmac, Newark at Midlakes, Penyan at Waterloo, Bloomfield at Red Jacket, Dundee at HAC, Honeoye at Naples, and Romulus at South Seneca. Predictions, Dave?
For that game?
Yeah.
South Seneca should win easily.
Are they going to turn up the
if
lights?
you really want me, that would be an interesting strategy. The Romulus team will give it their all, but they're just not very darn good.
And then we got East Rochester at Red Creek. We got Gananda at Clyde on Friday night, and that could be a potential stumbling point for Clyde. Lions at Williamson, Sodas at North Rose Wolcott, and then Saturday night, Mynderse at Lions, and that's going to be an awesome game. But guess what, Kevin? We're not going to be able to see it because we're going to be in Lake Placid with Verk.
You're taking Kevin too?
Yeah, we're all. Actually, all Finger Lakes One sports team members should be invited. We'll just
I think so.
bring them along.
You know, if I go
We'll
up
do
there,
podcasts up
I'd
there.
be afraid it would be like weekend at Barney's instead of Bernie's, and I'd be the corpse.
Well, we could go up there to film a promo for future broadcast, Dave, where you actually do the luge.
Oh, my. Yeah.
Well, thanks again, guys, for sitting in for Verk tonight. And that about wraps it up for this week's edition of the Upstate Hoops Podcast. Next week, we'll be back on a regular night, Thursday at 9 p.m. For our live viewers, we'll be back online at 10 o'clock Eastern for the Upstate Orange Podcast, where we'll talk about the 18-0 Syracuse Orange and their thrilling victory over Pittsburgh on Saturday in the Dome. Thanks for joining us. For Kevin Korzeniewski, Dave Barnick, our producer Jeremy Hunt, I'm Jim Sinacropi. See you next week.